Please, let's settle down. I think the Honorable Minister is here. We're about to start the event. Stay, no? I believe we are ready to start now. Please let us settle down. Good morning, Honorable Minister of Works and Housing. Good morning, our guests. Good morning, members of the Presidential Communication Team. Good morning, gentlemen of the press. If there's one area that improvements have been made in this country in the last 6 years, it is the road sector. The road infrastructure under the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing has recorded a lot of notable feats under President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration. Not long ago, we read that the federal government is currently carrying out 800 projects in the sector, including the construction of 37 bridges across the country. The man who made the disclosure, the Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, he said with us this morning with his team, not to defend what he said, but to provide further enlightenment and updates of some of the key projects to representatives of local and international media, as well as other stakeholders. The Senior Advocate of Nigeria will also highlight positive effects that the completion of some of these projects will have in boosting the livelihood of Nigerians and, of course, the knock-on effect on the economy. The Honorable Minister is here this morning with the team that has been helping him over the years, made up of one, Mrs. Oyeboade Akinola is the Director of Press and Public Relations. Mr. Akim Bello is Special Assistant on Communications. Architect Ahmed Dangiwa is not here yet, but we're expecting him. Senator Benga Ashafa, the Managing Director of Federal Housing Authority, is here on the high table. Engineer Uzo, the Director of Highways, is also here on the high table, as well as Engineer Mujahidu Dako, Executive Director of FEMA. Without wasting too much time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister to the podium here. He will speak with us as routinous for about 20-30 minutes, after which he will take questions based on his presentation. Honorable Minister.
So good morning. I think gentlemen of the press is the appropriate nomenclature. But before I go into the presentation, let me first acknowledge those who are here. Senator Benga Shafa and his team in the Federal Housing Authority, the director from FEMA representing Engineer Rafin Dadi and his team in the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency, and Engineer Chukwunwike Uzo, who represents other directors in our ministry. I like to call Engineer Uzo our single source of truth because he heads the Directorate of Highway Planning and Development. And in the last 6 years, one thing, if anything, we have achieved in that ministry is that if you wanted to know anything that is going on any road in Nigeria today, in less than 10 minutes, you will get it from that department, because everybody is now wired together. And so you will see the consistency in information management. Of course, Akim Bello and Director Buhari Akinola are our interface with many of you here, trying to get the message out, the amount of progress that is being made. The Managing Director of Federal Mortgage Bank has just stepped in. Maybe he wants to come here. Please come in. Architect Dangiwa. So let me start where the moderator left off and say that there may have been a misunderstanding in what I said when I said referred to 800 contracts. It is 800 contracts, not 800 projects. And the number of contracts are growing. Just yesterday, I briefed here about 5 different roads. Each one of them is a contract. Now, sometimes within a road, you might have multiple contracts. So if you look at Kano to Maiduguri highway is 560 kilometers. So there are 5 different contractors there. Each one has a unique contract. If you look at Lagos Ibadan, there are 2 contracts there. If you look at Enugu Port Harcourt, I think there are 5 contracts there. So, but each one has a designated supervising project officer and so on. So in that sense, yes, it's correct to say we have 800 plus contracts, multiple projects also. One of the I think let's go here. So let's just move that slide forward a little bit. I'll come back to just go forward. Yeah, go. So let's just stop here. You know, and let's play back maybe 2014 in our minds. I think all of us here remember that we were warned by the then Minister for Finance and Economic Coordination that Nigeria was heading for a recession. I think we all remember that. So it was not a question of if, it was going to happen. And I think what is important, post when it then happened, is what did we do? Because we were then the managers of the economy when it finally happened. We were not the cause of it, but it was going to happen. So, one of the things we did was to make a plan. And that was the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. And again, on the day that plan was completed, working with the National Assembly, executive and legislative arms of government, many of you were present to witness the unveiling of that plan. Now, if you cast your mind back, what are the key elements of that plan? And some of the key elements that I recall was that that plan sought to grow the Nigerian economy again. And one of the things it also sought to achieve was to make Nigeria a globally competitive economy. And one of the things that plan decided to use was to build on the existing infrastructure, expand it as a way of creating growth. The truth is that no nation can grow bigger than its infrastructure. And that is why even countries that have more than us are trying to get more than us. And that is the precursor to, so the responsibility then given to the Ministry of Works was go and build out our road transport infrastructure. My colleague in the Ministry of Transportation, Amechi, also has his own mandate. Go and build out our marine and shipping infrastructure. So there's a new port coming in Lekki, and go and build out our rail transport. My colleague in aviation, go and expand our aviation capacities. That's why you see new airports, expansion of, and so on and so forth. So let's go then to the next slide. And just we're focusing on those bridge roads, housing, and what public works is doing. So just run it along. Let me see. So now this is an important point. And what is important about this point is that why did we go into recession? One of the reasons was that our forex earnings were beginning to drop. Our revenues were not meeting our expectations, and so on and so forth. So some of the things that this administration has done is that in spite of that dwindling revenue, as I said in the first term, that this administration has done a lot more with a lot less. And it must take credit for it. It has essentially been very creative in raising revenue and committing them. And these are some of the sources. The Presidential Infrastructure Fund, made up of the utilization of our dividends from the NLNG, and also some of the monies that are repatriated during the tenure of previous administrations, and which other countries have actually shared amongst themselves. With the reputation of the president, they have been forced back to the table, and some of those monies have come, and that is under management by the NSI. The Sukuk, of course, was investment in infrastructure directly by operators of the capital market, and then the road infrastructure tax credit scheme. Now, let me say very clearly, this was inherited from the previous administration. The order already existed, but it was never used. So the first project that came to life under that scheme was the Obajana-Akaba Road, and I presented it in my first term. And of course, we have now used this for the Bodo Boni, for the Apapa Wolonshoki, and yesterday I announced about 274 kilometers of new concrete road. Of course, we have expanded its frontiers, reviewed its utilization, and of course, multilateral loans and contracts. So if you move that forward, then the Northeast Development, if you go back, the Northeast Development Commission was another strategic engagement we have, which is helping us, as you can see, as you will see when I go for that. So just go on. So this is a picture of where we were in 2015. So the budget for roads in Nigeria in 2015 that we inherited was 18 billion for all Nigeria's roads. Let me put that in context for you. 2015 was also the year that I left office as governor of Lagos. So the budget for Lagos State roads for that year was about 70 billion. And it was not enough for Lagos. So I don't see how 18 could have been enough for the whole of Nigeria. So, but first budget of the Buhari administration, 260 billion. The next 240 billion. The next 356 billion. Then we come down to 233, 227, and so on and so forth. And I will speak to those later. But as I said, we were doing a lot more with a lot less. So look at the price of oil when we came, $48. But in the 6 years or so before 2015, oil was trading at over $100. So with a lot less revenue, we impacted a 1,334% increase in public spending. So when I say we have done a lot more with a lot less, this slide frames that statement. So moving forward, please. Now, just to give you heads up some of the things, what the Sukuk has done. So in the first year, when we took the Sukuk, it was 482 kilometers of road that were executed. That was 100 billion. And there were 25 roads, if I remember correctly. Of course, the success of the Sukuk then meant more roads and so on and so forth. So in this second offering, we've covered 642 kilometers. And in the third offering, we've covered 600 kilometers. And across Nigeria, those of you who drive, you will see a Sukuk project, not in all states, but at least in every zone of Nigeria. So if you move that, this is the breakdown of the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund, and it is targeted at specific projects, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, the Abuja-Kano Road, and the Second Niger Bridge. And it just tells you, so where are we? And perhaps now or maybe later we will deal with what has been completed. But it just tells you what is being done at this moment. So if you look at the first one, the section from Shagamu to Lagos is 44 kilometers, 43.6, and 35 kilometers, almost 36, has been completed as at this time this was done. On the second one, the length is 103 kilometers both ways. If you measure both ways that has been completed, the actual length of that section is 84 kilometers. And if you multiply that, you'll be looking at 160 something. So we've done 103 kilometers out of 160 something. And then if you go to the Abuja-Kano, what has been completed now, coming from Kano this way, and the breakdown is there, is 129 kilometers out of 375 kilometers. So the section from Kano to Zaria to Kaduna has progressed faster than the section from Kaduna to Abuja. So if you move that forward, again, this is another illustration of what the tax credit scheme has done, and I spoke to those yesterday, and I don't think we should spend too much time. Of course, this will be made available after, so if you just move it on. See, these are projects under multilateral loan. So again, yes, as I say, we should have these conversations about how much money the country is borrowing They're legitimate conversations to have, but also I think that we should not be bombastic about them. These are the facts. These are the rules under multilateral funding in our ministry. And you see that there are not so many of them. And some of them, like the Ilesha-Akure Road, we still even haven't accessed the loan. So we're still talking to the bank, but the process to access the loan must start with a request to the National Assembly, and that's when everybody hears about it. And even when the National Assembly approves it, it does not mean that you have got the money. So the Makurdi to 9th Mile, for example, the project that I think I reported is award about 2 years ago, the approval for the loan was given, which is the second phase of the Abuja to Makurdi. We still don't have the loan yet. So, but this is just to speak to funding issues. Just roll that forward, if you will. And this is, I spoke about our collaboration with the Northeast Development Agency, and these are the places where they're helping us construct 3 bridges along the Maraba, Mubi, Michika, Madagali Road in Adamawa, and this is the investments that they have made. So move that on. So what are the results? So I've spoken about the plan, I've spoken about the funding sources and some of it. So, okay, and I think this is where the misstatement came from. 800 and contracts it should be for highways, bridges, and so on. And this covers 13,000 plus kilometers out of the 35,000 plus federal road network. We have also invested some of those resources in 43 tertiary educational institutions. And so this also helps to paint the picture that when we report the funding for education, it is not only in the Ministry of Education that you will find the investment in education, because the Ministry of Education does not have the engineering faculty to execute some of these projects. So, and there are other projects that constitute investments also, like the 37 university electrification projects that were initiated in my tour of duty in the power ministry. There are also investments in education. And so sometimes when we report the spending on infrastructure for on education, all of this should come into it. We are also constructing 6 new federal secretariats arising from the creation of new states where assets were separated. And I think the one in Anambra, the one in Zamfara are the likeliest to finish this year. Nasarawa will run into probably next year, and Bayelsa, Ekiti is a race to the finish line. I hope Femi Adesina doesn't mind me saying so. So then, of course, housing projects in 34 states, rehabilitation of bridges, some of which have been brought to our attention, some of which are now part of our global maintenance plan. Then FEMA, as our maintenance agency, is acting on over 5,000 kilometers of road and 8,000 kilometers of highway maintenance, which is part of job creation as well. And you remember we had this, I announced here to the press house call when we presented a facility management and maintenance policy that the Federal Executive Council approved. And it was in furtherance of the position that we took then, that maintenance is not a culture, it's an economy. And if you make it a policy, it will create sustainable jobs long after the construction work has finished. And if there was any example of it, we're living in that example. The villa. This building has finished how many years ago? But every morning as we come in and go out, we see people cleaning, painting, repairing, replacing. This is what creates sustainable work after construction ends. The hundreds of people who work there have disappeared and gone about their lives. But because there's a maintenance program, it creates work long after, and it is sustainable work, and that is what we're trying to do now. So that you will find in 24 federal secretariats, long abandoned, and if anybody is from Kaduna here who has visited the federal secretariat in Kaduna, then go and see what it is like now. And go and ask the workers how they feel now. It's a much better place to work in. And we're doing that in 24 other. Not only have we rehabilitated them, we now have facility managers employed there, cleaning, flushing, vegetation control, polishing on a regular contractual basis. So the Zik Mausoleum, for example, that we commissioned about 2 years ago, we've also appointed a facility manager for the place now. So some of the problems that were reported before are being fixed, and if any new problems come, again, and this is the way to go for the whole country, really. So if you move that quickly on, and these are just job numbers from those various projects, because we insist that all our contractors send us returns as you get a contract, how many people are you employing, what are they doing, as much as possible, so that we can tie the investment in infrastructure to its actual economic output and the impact on the economy. So move that on. These are also job numbers of ahead. So apart from directly employing people, the investment in infrastructure also creates a demand and drive for materials. So all those who sell building materials, cement, reinforcement, paint, doors, construction companies don't keep those materials. It's the day we give them a contract that they then say, oh, call this person and sons, this person enterprises, that one limited, supply diesel, supply paint, supply this. And so we try to track what goes on in each site, because we get monthly reports, contractors raising certificates. So we've created a template that before we pay you, you owe us a duty to also share some information with us. Apart from your job, let us know how many suppliers you used, what did you buy, because at the heart of these suppliers, behind all of these figures, are families. Families who are involved in either diesel supply, iron rod supply, that's their family business. Small cottage industries making paint, making brush, and all of the things that the industry uses. And that is where the heart of every economy is, the SMEs, family businesses. So we're trying to track that data, and we tease them out, and we also then categorize them into the different zones where the impact is, because it then helps us as we make decisions going forward, which zone is either not getting enough, and so on and so forth. And also when we hear complaints, also we can go back and look at our records and say, no, this is not correct. This is what is going on here. So if you just move that on, and again, these are job-created materials used in the road sector. Again, broken down, and that's why I said that's the single source of truth. So because it was always his job from the day I became minister that I need to see these results, because so that we can brief council from time to time about the impact. And we never knew that this day was coming, but we have been keeping these records over the years. So move that on. And these are some of the photographs from field work. You see rakes. So this is somebody's cut industry, making rakes. Those who supply brooms, those who supply cutlasses, machetes. This is how the infrastructure reaches the ground from the day when we start here. And this is how, so I always say that this is the most legitimate way to distribute money in any economy. And that is why you will find it difficult to see any president, any governor, any prime minister, anywhere in the world, when he's reading his inaugural address, there's always a mention of infrastructure. These are some of the reasons. This is how money goes down. These people are not in fake. But what happens here when we report them reaches them in the remotest corners of the country. So just move that a little further. So these are aggregates. So even those who are cement, granite, what's happening, the data we are actually trying to get, which we haven't succeeded yet, is the data from the various quarries. Because there's a lot of work going on in those quarries as a result of infrastructure. I'm still working with the Federation of Construction Industries trying to get this. So these are some of the, so let's go on. So in each facility management now, I told you we have 24 federal secretariats. So this is what each of our contractor employs, 44 people, permanently. So the more we do that, the more they employ people. So move it on. Now, I think it is important to just dwell on this. I have, I think, how many minutes more? That we have dealt with some of Nigeria's most difficult projects. Projects that have defied solution from previous administrations. So one of them is the Lagos-Shagamu-Ibadan Expressway. You know how long, since 1999, it was the road in the news. But it was under this administration that construction started. And I say that emphatically. Before then, what was happening was maintenance. And so we're nearing completion now. As I showed you, grossly about 80 kilometers, because we get updates weekly. 80 kilometers plus out of 120-something kilometers have now been completed and open to traffic. Bodo Boni, I briefed you about that last week. It was awarded 3 times unsuccessfully. It's either the community chased the contractor out or the contractor just couldn't execute. So this is the first time that actual construction is now going on. One bridge has been finished. The second one is in progress. Several kilometers of road network have already been constructed. Of course, the second Niger bridge has been in the news for a long time. It comes in the news during election campaign period. And then it goes away. But now, all of the structures, the piles, everything is complete now. It's just to finish the deck and the link road to Owerri. Abuja-Kano Highway was last acted upon in 1991. It was awarded, I think, in 1985 by the Babangida administration, and since 1991, no action there. Again, now that is taking impact. Of course, who can forget the Apapa Orunshuki Expressway? Many containers have fallen there, killed people, damaged properties. So since 1975 was when it was completed, nothing of substance there. So this is the final solution because it is now fully being reconstructed with concrete. And as I reported yesterday, I think 29 kilometers out of 35 kilometers have been completed. So it's important to just understand that the Buhari administration has attacked Nigeria's most difficult projects with success. So let's move that on. So I think what is left now is just some visual representation of what I have been speaking about. So to your left is, and all of that, hold it there. This is the second Niger Bridge, but these photos are perhaps several months old. Much more progress has been made. I haven't been there lately. So if you just run that along very slowly. So this is the Abuja-Kano road, and as they are building, they are lane marking, they are opening to traffic. So when people actually ask, when are you going to complete? As I say, and I will repeat again, we can't close down Abuja to Kano or any other highway for that matter, like a city road where you close it up, then the day you are opening it, you come and cut tape. We can't do that. So what we do, we close up maybe 10, 15 kilometers, divert traffic to one side, construct that, do the lane marking. Once we finish, once you are driving on it, it's so just move that on. So these are different sections. This is Kano Maiduguri. Just hold it there. Kano Maiduguri that I told you about. So while some part is nearing completion, this is Azare to Potiskum area. Some parts have been open to traffic by those of you who know the road, who use the road. Then underneath is the Enugu-Onitsha Expressway. And it's instructive to share with you a text message I got, I think, about 8 days ago. Somebody actually went to that road, took a photograph of himself, and do you have it? Okay, I'll look for it and share it. And said that that road used to take him 1 hour 15 minutes to travel from Oka to Onitsha. And that now it took him 25 minutes. So, and this is happening also on the Obajana-Kaba road. That road used to take 90 minutes, it's 40-something kilometers. The drive is now about 30 minutes. So if time is money, and I think we all agree that it is, the Buhari administration is also saving you money as your journey time reduces. So if you just now, to the left there in the middle, that is the bridge that links Nigeria with Cross River, with Cameroon, from Umfung in Cross River to Bamenda in Cameroon. This is perhaps a much older photograph, and to the right you will see it's been asphalted because it's been finished. So we're talking to myself and the Minister for Works in Cameroon are now talking to see when our two presidents can find a convenient date to officially open this bridge. It was a bridge out of the Bakassi settlement, and it was jointly financed by the Nigerian government and the Cameroon government. So if you just move that on, this is concrete work on the Apapa Urushoki. You can just hold it so you can see how the road is being built. First is the sub-base, and then the reinforcement with iron, and then they put the concrete deck on. Now at the bottom is Bodo Boni, so you can see the concrete there, the length of road across the Afa Creek. This was impossible in the 3 previous attempts. So if you just move that on, and these are just bridges, maintenance, I've spoken about them. Just move that. So this is, again, employment, essentially. Bridges across the country needing repair, needing rehabilitation. Now, this is the old Niger Bridge. What may not be obvious to some is that this bridge is constantly under maintenance. We have divers who go under to check every year, at least since I became minister. We rehabilitate the reinforcement because it is steel against corrosion and all of that, so that once you use it, many we are often not mindful of the fact that work is going on underneath. But as I said, this is the Independence Bridge in Lagos, for those who are familiar with that. Just run it along. Isaac Boro Bridge in Port Harcourt. Then, now, I think it's important to help us highlight this point. This was the section of the old bridge that we closed off last year. This was how close it was to the jet drop. That was how close. And when I showed this to the president, I said, look, we don't have the money to rebuild this if it came down. And he approved that we intervene immediately. And there's still a couple more. That has been done. We're now working on this was the island-bound section from Alaka. We are now working on the Alaka-bound section. That's why that other part is closed off. So, but I got a report yesterday. They're almost done with that, and they should finish by the 13th of August, and we can open that place back to traffic. But this is what we do. So, moving on. But at the time, I couldn't even share that photograph with anybody except the president, not to create any panic. But this can happen, and it's happened even in better economy. We saw the bridge in Italy give way. So it can happen anywhere. It's just constant inspection. So we are reactivating the bridge maintenance unit. There used to be one in the 70s. So that again, we'll get people deployed to just keep going and checking and reporting what they see. And that will form the basis of maintenance plan, maintenance procurement. So just run that all along. Now, this is the Tamburawa Bridge. I think in my first term, it was carried in the media. What had happened here was that people were dredging sand in this river in Kano. And as they were dredging sand, they were taking the support system to the piers away. So this is what we have done now to protect them and to ensure that the bridge structure stays intact. Then the Makode Bridge, we had to replace the expansion joint. Again, let me just explain that to you. Bridges are built in sections. An engineer will pardon me for encroaching on his territory. But so, because they are not static, if the bridge is built totally static, it can snap. So you need room to move. So these joints are the expansion joints where we feel the impact when we are driving. So they wear, then they also sit on bearings, which require constant inspection and change. Many of these bearings have not been touched for 30 years. So this is what we're doing. Unfortunately, there's no local support industry to manufacture all these things. But by the time we compile all what needs to be done in terms of expansion joints, bearings, maybe if we put them out, some people may then be inclined to say, look, I'm going to that market to go and set up. For now, we have to import most of the bearings and the joints. So move that on. Katsina-Ala Bridge, Ojuelegba Bridge, so many more. So just Isoko's Bridge, move that on. Marine Bridge, Eba Bridge, some of the bridges also damaged by insurgency is receiving attention, so just move that on. Again, Katsina, and then go on. Of course, the third mainland bridge repair was much publicized. It might just interest you to know that the work is not finished. So what we finished were the joints and the bearings. There's still work going on under, so we're still getting reports. But that is not visible to the public. So, yeah. And of course, people removing. So all of this, as you can see, the texture of the finish here and this material are not the same. These were all removed. We replaced them. And we hope that they will let them be now. So, on. And some bridges have been damaged by trailers, tankers, who just used them. This was the Obalenje Bridge, I think you reported it, where a truck laden with fuel rammed into it and it caught fire. So this is the finished repair work that you see under. So, yes, go on. Of course, our housing story I have alluded to, just to show you, these are snapshots. That's Jigawa, that's Oshun, Kaduna, Imo, just move that on. That's Nasarawa, that's Bauchi, that's Cross River, that's Kebbi, and it's in 34 states. These are just samples of what is going on. Some are now in phase 2, some are now in phase 3, and then this is renovation of public buildings, as I spoke about maintenance. So this was what our conference room used to look like. This is what it now looks like. So we're taking some of our own medicine as well. So these are also interventions in some sister agencies, Radio House, those who work there. So these are, hold on there, these are some of the secretariats that I told you about. So these are photos of them before, just hold it there, before and after. And these are what the toilets now look like, white and visible and can be used. And if you look at all of these photos in more detail, these are all the people I spoke about. This is labor, this is employment. So move that on. Of course, FEMA on the Sharo MIP, stakeholders assisted right of way maintenance intervention program. I've given you the numbers, and maybe the director may speak to them should you require him to do so. Move on. And these are photographs. You see this across as you go on travel across Nigeria. So just roll that on, and there's a lot of it. These are just samples that we think you can deal with within the time allotted. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Minister. I believe the enlightenment we needed, he has provided. So on this note, we'll go to the question and answer session. If there are areas of the minister's brief that you want further explanation, I will pass the microphone around. Okay, we'll start with Ralia.
Good morning. My name is Raleigh Attad, and I come from Classic FM and The Beat, Abuja. My question is, how transparent are your contracts awarding and procurement processing? Also, the Auditor General of the Federation has penciled down your ministry in their report for flouting Public Procurement Act and non-remittance of statutory deductions. Then secondly, when are we going to see when is the tolling on the highways going to commence? Then thirdly, you did not actually speak about the housing project. Housing project. How affordable are the unaffordable housing in Nigeria? And do you think there is a housing crisis? Do you think there's need for a new law to address these issues? Thank you.
Honorable Minister, my name is DJ Lumo, I write for This Day newspapers. My name is DJ Lumo, I write for This Day newspapers. For some time now, way bridges on federal roads have been abandoned. And I want to talk particularly about the one in Owode Oniri and Papalanto. What is the ministry doing about resuscitating them? That is one. You talked about getting loans to finance road projects. But across the country, we could notice many federal highways in bad condition. And I want to be specific about Ife Ibadan, Ilisha Akure, potholes here and there, no signs for motorists to be, so that maybe they will look out for some of these things. But it's been on for years. What about the issue of routine maintenance in the ministry? Has it been forgotten? Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Honorable Minister. My name is Dr. Leon Usigbe of the Nigerian Tribune. Yes, sir. Maybe drawing on the last speaker intervention on loans. I also want to, well, while you were speaking, you said conversations on borrowing are legitimate, but you didn't want people to be bombastic. I think that's fair. But can you give us a sense of how much loan your ministry has assessed in the 6 years you have been minister to execute projects? How much have you paid back of such loans? And how much of such projects have actually been executed and delivered? The projects that were executed with loans specifically. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, the Honorable Minister, my name is Don Bosco Abakuru. I write for Vanguard. Yeah, sir, I want to find out. My name is John Bosco Abakuru. Yes, sir. Okay, so my first question is, why has it been very difficult to complete the East-West Road? Secondly, the Itu-Udbani-Calabar Road has always been on the budget every year. What's the situation? When is it going to be completed? Thank you, sir.
The first question was about, well, it was a series of questions, one dealing with transparency of contract processes. And to the extent that we follow the Public Procurement Act, we advertise, we receive bids, we evaluate, we go to the Bureau of Public Procurement where the thresholds need to be complied with. And from there, we do either ministerial tender or the Federal Executive Council memos, as the case may be, I'm not sure that you could ask for more transparency because we comply with the law. Yes, the Auditor General has raised some issues, and that is not something that is out of the ordinary. I'm not sure that people lose what's the right word now? Because there's an audit query. Audit queries should be expected when there's an audit. The question to ask is, what is the response to the audit query? And has the query been answered? So an audit query doesn't necessarily conclude that something is wrong. The auditor is just saying, look, I need more response. I need more information about this. And that is the response of the finance team in the ministry. The department responsible for the procurement. And I think it's important also to highlight something so that you help us share this information with Nigerians. The staff in the Ministry of Works today in the different departments are not all staff of the Ministry of Works. It's the engineers that are the staff, core staff of the Ministry of Works. The staff in the legal department are staff of the Ministry of Justice. The staff in the procurement department are staff of BPP, seconded to us. The staff in the Directorate of Finance and Accounts are staff of the Accountant General. Mrs. Akinola, who is here, is for information. She's Director of Press. She's from Ministry of where? So it's an ecosystem of checks and balances and interdependence. And I think it's important in trying to see what we're doing, to understand. And if you go to other ministries too, you will find in their works or engineering department, you find Ministry of Work staff seconded like that to provide the technical competence that we have. And I think it's important to help us share these things. So the audit query also is not directed at me, it's directed at the ministry. And as the minister, I don't sign checks, I don't know where the accounts are, I don't know which balances are where. So each person has his role. But I am kept in the picture of the query, and I've also kept in the picture of the response. When will tolling start? Well, tolling will start when we complete the processes. I think I briefed you here before about the Highway Development Management Initiative. That has progressed. We have received bids. We have qualified people. We are now going to ask them to send in proposals. And I don't want to go ahead of myself. We're finalizing a tolling policy that will come to council and that will be considered by government. We have held stakeholders meeting ahead of that. And I think that in not too far from now, you will see us take the next step towards that. Affordable housing, we're not in a housing crisis. And this is the subject of a full discussion itself. And I think we all need to learn the same things so that our understanding and our discussions can be more fruitful. My sense is that the housing shortages that exist in essentially all parts of the world are in the urban centers, not in the rural areas. So it is a problem that has come as a result of urbanization, where people move from rural to urban centers. and then it creates a supply and demand problem. And so you will find that many of the people who are in urban centers, cities like Abuja, Kanu, Kaduna, Lagos, Weri, Port Harcourt, Aba, Ibadan, Abeokuta, and those type of places, seeking to squat with somebody or trying to rent a house or whatever, has an empty home in his village. So if we understand it like that, then let us look at the urban center itself. In the urban center again, you will see that there are still empty houses. And you will then understand that we have to discuss housing on two paradigms, ownership and rental. Because no nation provides full ownership for all of this. This is a combination of ownership and rental. And you move sometimes from renter to become an owner. In that context, one of the things we've tried to address is to urge states to intervene in management of rent. Because as long as people have to pay 3 years rent from salaries that are earned monthly in arrears, there will be a problem of affordability. But if you brought it to like 3 months in advance, there is something still called, at least when I was in private sector employment, we used to have salary advance. And so, but most of the properties affected by this lack of occupation belong to private people. So government can't go and take their property. But I think that by persuasion, by intervention through state legislation, which was what we urged at the Housing National Council in Jos this year, we can bridge some of this. But the good news also is that the private sector is now playing heavily in this market. And those who have been following will see there's a lot of advert on radio, on TV, of offers, and this is what we want to see more. And so, those numbers that have been bandied around, we have 17 million deficit, is a lie. I found the source of it. It was in a document in our ministry that it was written, and I've asked the author, and they said there was no verification, there was no basis, there was no data to support it. So stop repeating it, because it's not true. And it doesn't accord with logic either, when you have so many empty houses in urban centers and urban cities, to say no country has such a deficit in the world. So I will move on very quickly. Way bridges, Owode Oniri, engineers, what's the update? We have a contract for the reform. How far? We are speak.
So the way bridge is at 50% completion. And the contractor just asked us now to bring people to train, because the components, they cannot install them because it will be pilfered. They want to train the people and hand over. So that is, the way bridges, the two in Lagos, will come back, because most of, about 70% of the cargo we have, the greatest damage is coming from the ports in Lagos. So we don't want to damage that Lagos-Ibadan road that is almost being completed now. So we're going to, the way bridges will come back within the next quarter of this year. Thank you.
So we also will expect that when the HDMI policy kicks in, they will come with way bridges and will roll out slowly but surely. If Ibadan, Ilesha, Akure, I think you hit the money on the head, is financing, but those are projects that are part of the main budget, and we are pinching our pennies and moving them forward slowly. We couldn't how do you say it, put everything either in the Sukuk or in PIDF or in the multilateral loans basket. In any event, we're not the only ones there, and we have to make tough choices, and those tough choices are a function not of who is more important, but where is our greatest need, which roads carry the heaviest traffic. And that's why we have concentrated first on that. If we get those out of the road, clearly, the nation is a going concern, then we can concentrate our energies on those things. Routine maintenance in the ministry, that is why FEMA is here. Once a road is finished, and after the defects liability period, if there are many maintenance issues, FEMA is the one that steps in. So that's the relationship we have had. Essentially, all of the assets of the ministry for maintenance of roads in the 70s was what was carved out and handed over to FEMA when it was created. Most of the FEMA offices used to be works yard of the Federal Ministry of Works in the 70s. So we are still of the same parish, if you like. Leon, again, loans. I think the specific details of questions you ask of me, how much has been repaid, how much has been disbursed, and all of those, honestly, I wish I could provide the figures, but I don't have them. And that is the statutory responsibility of the Office of Debt Management. Because we, as Ministry of Works, don't go out to go and borrow money. We can't. It is the Ministry of Finance working with Debt Management Office. We just tell them, this is what we need to do. This is how much it costs. Can you give us the money to go shopping? And they say, okay, wait, let's go and see how much we can raise. Of course, they monitor what we do. And I'm sure that they will be quite pleased to provide the details. Of course, in terms of projects executed, I've told you about the road to Cameroon. That was the project funded by a multilateral loan. I've given you some highlights of the Akwanga, Abuja, Maraba, Akwanga, Kefilafia Road, and work is going on there. The loan for the Makurdi to Ninth Mile has not been disbursed, so we can't start, but we are provisioned in the budget of 2022 that should the loan be approved, we will be able to start with provisions for our counterpart funding. The Akure Ado-Ekiti Road, our papers are in with the AFDB, but they're asking for some more updates, and we're working with the state government to complete that, and when it is disbursed, we'll be able to move forward. Now, the East-West Road asked by Bosco, the East-West Road is not under the Ministry of Works and Housing. It is under the Ministry of Niger Delta. But I can give you from recollection and please, I hope I'm not wrong here, my assessment, because I taught the East-West Road in my first term, and I recall that I gave a report to council after there were some disputes, just like you raised, that it hasn't become. 70% of that road has been finished, of what is the East-West Road. The large part that remains is the part into Bayelsa. And I remember the time in 2017 or so when we went, there were issues with militants at times, so the contractor left the site. Things have since calmed down now, and I'm sure that Governor Akpabio, who is now the minister, has been talking to me about the need. And then the part to Oron was another part that needed to be looked at. And the figures then were hundreds of billions that clearly were not available because of the design for an expanded highway. And some of the questions will be, what is the immediate need? And can we reduce that cost in terms of the reality of the current traffic count and also the part that links to the Atlantic? So what are the best ways to provide transport? But Governor Pabio, the Honorable Minister for the Niger Delta, will be in a better position. Itu, Udukpani, Calabar, we have contracts there. The budgetary provisions have not been enough. We have moved it into the Sukuk, and it is not unusual at this time of the year to experience some movement difficulties there. I think last week there was a gridlock there, and we found out that there was a broken down truck because I asked a director to check, and the director south, that was the report to me, and that they were making efforts to dislodge it. But the terrain there has a very, very high water content and water table. That is Nigeria's rainforest, really. So it's not an easy place to build infrastructure. It is more expensive, just like Lagos. The cost of building there is quite expensive, and the specifications to which we have to build. But we have two contractors there. Then there's a section that we are trying to procure. Then from Udukpani Junction going to Alesi, Ugep, or on to Akpet, we have also awarded the second phase of that contract. The first phase was about 70-something kilometers, which has been completed. So I think that was the last question. So rainy season or bad weather generally is not the most clement weather to do transport business, whether it's aviation, whether it is maritime or rail transport. Weather is a big issue, and we are now in our own very difficult weather season. So, thank you.
Okay. The Minister will oblige us. Let's take 5.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for this opportunity.
Questions.
All right, thank you. May I know the kind of relationship that exists between you and host communities as you build these roads across the country? Kindly highlight some of the benefits they gain from these contracts that you execute along their areas. And then lastly for me, maybe for the MD Federal Mortgage Bank. Civil servants every month have some amount of money deducted from their salaries for housing. May I know how what you are doing rather to make it easy for civil servants to own houses before the end of their careers? Thank you.
Right, yeah. Honorable Minister, my name is Philip Mwele. I work for Wazobia FM. While you were addressing us, you did not mention the Lokoja, Abuja, Uromi on Onitsha Highway. Lokoja, that is Abuja, Lokoja, Uromi on Onitsha Highway. Considering the level of traffic on that route, one would have thought that priority would have been given to that highway to reduce the travel time and the nightmare that people face on that exit. For instance, if you drive through there and you navigate through Romi, Ebu, Ela, Ubulu, Asaba, Onitsha, you'll find out that the route would have cut down travel time. So my question is, how is government, deciding the projects that, they prioritize? Now, secondly, it's on the Kubo to Lafia route, we know what happens on that route almost always. As people drive home, there's traffic there's accidents always. Why don't we do something to get the contractor handling the Apo Karishi route to complete the work early to ease the nightmare that people are going through? Thank you.
All right. My name is Tony Elemen. I write for Business Day. So when you were speaking, you talk about the absence of local manufacturers for construction, equipment. And I want to ask, since you import so much of that material, how huge or what do you spend in the importation of those materials? And then what are you doing to encourage local manufacturing in that particular sector? Secondly, we know that the mortgage institution all over the world play very important role in housing deficit. And I know that although you said there isn't such issue in Nigeria, but I remember in April this year, it was said that we have about 22 million deficit in terms of our housing needs. When are we going to recapitalize and strengthen the federal mortgage institution so that they can play their own role effectively as others do in other countries? Thank you.
All right, good morning. Gloria Mezike from Channels TV. Well, interestingly, has asked my first question about how much, if there's a budget for maintenance. I just want to know about that. And secondly, you refuted that we have 17 million deficit, housing deficit. What was your finding? I mean, in place of 22 or 17, whatever the case may be. What was your finding? What do we have now? Thank you.
Good morning, sir. My name is Bello Wakilo, Radio Nigeria. Sir, some years back on that same seat, you handed over the Kaduna Western bypass to Kaduna State government, where okay, the Kaduna Western bypass was handed over to Kaduna State government, but just yesterday, under the federal government tax credit scheme, Angote is going to fix the roads instead of the tax. Now, my question here is that road still under Kaduna State, or federal government is collecting back his road?
Minister, my name is Dr. Anuliman. I write for AFP. Minister, I remember asking you some time ago on the corridor here about the project, the dualization, additional alignments on the Kubo Kefi road. I understand that the initial design of that road was to begin in Kubo and stop somewhere in Kefi. But evaluation was done already for compensation for structures on both sides of the road. I could see houses, structures were marked from here to almost Kefi. And I realized when I found out that the problem was the amount that would be paid for government. I said, I think about 40 billion thereabout. And someone quoted you saying that that amount is too much. And there was an agreement between the federal government and the national state government to do their part in terms of bringing down that figure down. And so I understood that the project was cut and is going to end just at the border between Abuja and Nasarawa. That's one. Two, I told you the other time that the bridge linking Karu before Kubo, I found that the two lanes coming down in the design that will be executed will climb the road. The two lanes will climb on the bridge and not go down under the bridge. And I told you, I said, don't you think this will cause more traffic? Because if you're coming in from Karu to town, what it means that you will hit the traffic on the passengers on the commuters going straight to Kefi. So why are you planning to take those lanes up the bridge and not down the bridge? Thank you, sir.
On
It would need more work and maybe cost government more. There is the plan that I understand that the 2 lanes to climb on the bridge will be on the top of the bridge and not under the bridge. Is that correct? And if that is true, why? That's the question I'm asking, sir.
ask Engineer Uzo to speak to the last issue about Karu Bridge and also about the Kubo Road earlier asked, and then I would also invite the Managing Director of Federal Mortgage Bank to respond to his own questions, and then I will come back to take the rest, if that is fine. Don't worry, Engineer Uzo will speak to them.
Thank you very much. First, let me start from the first issue the minister asked me to talk about. The Apo-Karshi Road, first, is not under the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. That is under the Ministry of Federal Character Territory, FCT. Yes, Federal Capital Territory, FCT, yes. Then the Kubo-Mararaba Road, what the Federal Ministry is doing under the China Exim Bank loan is an expansion of the first 5.4 kilometers, starting from towards Abacha, that barracks there, 5.4, you see the widening that they are doing. They are expanding it to 10 lanes, that is 5 lanes on each direction. 3 lanes on the main carriageway, then 2 service lanes. That is what is happening there. But it stops at 5.4 kilometers. It does not go throughout the stretch of the road. That is the scope of works the contractor is, that is what is signed in the scope of works that to execute. Then on the reduction that you're now talking about, you can now understand what is happening, that after that 5.4 kilometers, the road will still remain as the 2 lane that it is now. The first 3 is 3 lanes now. It will remain like that. It's not going to, there's no contract to do any work there now, as we are speaking. So that is what you have. What it does is to help reduce the traffic volume coming into the FCT in the morning hours. Maybe some of the other link roads being done by the FCT will take off some of those traffic, but we believe that there will be improved traffic flow into town. Then the bridge you're talking about, is it the first bridge? Bridge. Please, I have to be sure of the alignment there. If you give me your details, I'll find out today and get back to you. Let me be sure, because I don't want to give information that is not right. Thank you.
You know, I said for just Dr. Anole, don't shake your head. You know why? But you didn't come back to me. You didn't come back to me. If it's such a big issue, give me your contact. I will give you mine. You just asked me something in the corridor. Come on. It's either I mean, look, even if we were computers, even computers ask for memory upgrade. So, but without losing the focus, we have departments in the office. Engineer Uzo is head of planning. There is a directorate of construction and rehabilitation. There is a directorate of materials, geotechnics, and quality control. There is also a directorate of bridges. So that's why he said he has to go and check, because the data, the primary data will be with the Department of Bridges. Those are the people who can speak authoritatively, because it's a bridge. If on Abuja Kanu Highway, for example, we have 375 kilometers. In between there are 40-something bridges. On that road, the main driver is Director of Construction and Rehabilitation. But when it gets to bridge point, he stops. It's not his job. It's the bridge people who take over. That's how we work. And that was why I was telling you that things had been in silos until we started putting them together and putting them in one shop. So, again, give your number to Hakim Bello, and it will help if you actually sent an email saying this is exactly the information I need. And I assure you, yeah. Any more? No. Yeah?
Good morning, Honorable Minister, sir, members of the press. The questions asked, which I need my response, is that easy access to home ownership, to which how easy is it to access to own a home? Well, ours is that of through mortgages. We are meant purposely to ease mortgage creation in the country, and the first focus this administration did was that of equity reduction. When we came about, we found that for you to access a 5 million naira loan of a house, to buy a house for 5 million naira, you need to have 10% equity. Above 5 million to 10 million, 20%, and then above 10 million to 15, you have to pay 30% equity. And looking at the earnings of Nigerians, especially the civil servants who are workers in the country, we find that there is no somebody who wants to own a house of 7 million naira must put in 700,000 naira. That's 10%. So through the Honourable Minister's approval, we're able to reduce that equity. Any loan below 5 million, you pay 0% equity. Above 5 million up to 15 million naira, you pay 10% equity. Because the purpose of FMBN is there, Federal Mortgage of Nigeria was there to give loans to renovate a house, to buy a house, to build your own house, and then give construction loans to estate developers to build affordable houses. So the main focus is that affordability. You'll find that you can think that you cannot even afford the house because of your earnings. What is given for a loan is that you pay 30% of your earnings is what is used to settle the loan if we give you a loan. Once you take a loan, 30% of your monthly salary should be calculated to the end of the time of your retirement. That's what determines how much you can earn as a loan from the bank. So through the various products and the bank were able to create a lot of products for easy access for Nigerians. The first one, which is said the most easy, is that of the home renovation loan. Though you say it's very minimal, it's 1 million naira to pay within 5 years. Many people in the urban centers, especially the local government, with this 1 million naira, they buy their own house of 700,000, 800,000, we have seen it. With that 1 million naira, they can buy a plot of 200 and then build a house of 700,000 naira. So this is what is there. Through this process, we have given out over 62,000 home renovation loans to Nigerians of 1 million naira within the last 4 years. And then the other one is the construction. For you to build your own house, construction loan is a new product done by the bank for individual who has a valid certificate of occupancy. Whether you want to start a new home, we give you a loan to build your own house. Or you want to complete your own house. The 1 million naira home renovation will not be able to complete your house, so you can opt for the home renovation, individual construction loan. Wherever the site is located, all we needed is a valid certificate of occupancy title, and then design, approved building plan, and the estimates. You approach any of branches nationwide, which are branches 36 states of the Federation, for you to access this individual construction loan. For some person who wants to ask to buy a house for him for a mortgage, you select the house you want anywhere in the country, and then you approach any of the primary mortgage banks to package your loan and send to us for us to process it. Over the years, for you to access a mortgage, it takes months or years to access the mortgage. But through this administration, we're able to reduce the turnaround, and within 3 months, you get your own, you get your loan approved. And then, because through that, we're able to carry mortgages. And then another product is that we realize that most of the workers in the Nigerian workforce, they are under the Nigerian Labour Congress, Trade Union Congress, and NECA. There's a collaboration between us, where we requested for 10 hectares of land from all the states of the Federation, from the governors, to give us free land for us to build affordable houses for Nigerians. Currently now we have built over 28 states. We have fully funded estates by the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria under the FNB, NLC, and the NECA collaborative project. There is another initiative approved by the Honorable Minister, which is Cooperative Housing Development Initiative. It is in order to reach out to the informal sector, because the National Housing Fund was created not only for the Nigerian workers. It's not only created for the civil servants. It was created for even the informal sector. All Nigerians to benefit. All you need to do, this one is giving you the leverage to, once you acquire your own land, then you should design whatever type of house you want. Even if it's a 2 million naira house, the cooperative society can be able to design for you. You design your own house, you get approved building plan, you approach FNBN for us to give you cooperative housing development loan to build the houses for your own cooperative members. Within the last 3 years of the approval of the Honorable Minister, we have created cooperative housing development over 150 mortgages, construction finance to these cooperative societies all over the country. Last year, before the COVID, Honorable Minister started launching this cooperative housing initiative in each of the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. Currently, we are having the National Economic, under the National Economic Sustainability Plan, to which our Honorable Minister is a member of that committee. The approval was given to FM Mortgage Bank to construct affordable houses to Nigerians. Now, contract has already been awarded to contractors to build 5,000 houses within FCT, affordable houses in various parts of the country, to which advertisement will be made for easy access of Nigerians. So if you look at the figures, over 145 billion naira has been disbursed under various mortgage loans, and over 10,000 housing units have been constructed through all this collaborative construction finance. Over 6,000 mortgages created, and I have said earlier 60,000 home renovation loans have been issued. And through all this, through the collection of the NHF instrumentality. So I wish to stop here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I believe I have to shed some light into the question asked about the civil servants and how they can be assisted through the mortgage industry. Unknowingly to most civil servants, the Federal Housing Authority on its own has a primary mortgage bank, which is FHA Homes, otherwise called FHA Mortgage Bank, which is like a sister bank to Federal Mortgage Bank. And it is their primary responsibility to ensure that those who are below the what I would call 1 million to 15 million bracket to borrow can be assisted. Once you are profiled, for instance, let me just go to Zuba, our new housing project in Zuba, which presently, by the end of the third quarter, is likely to be commissioned by the President. About 70% of those who have benefited are civil servants, and the range of the prices, the cost of houses, is between 5.5 for one bedroom, 7.5 to 7.8 for two bedroom, depending on what you want inside there. And the three bedroom is below 13 million. So civil servants have been coming and had the opportunity of joining into ensuring that when they apply, you know, they are given the opportunity to own a house. Apart from that, there's another product which is which was initiated by the Honorable Minister, and that has to do with home rent to own. This is a unique initiative that we are looking at, and part of those housing units, about 40 to 50 units, will be launched to kickstart and pilot this scheme to see that Nigerians benefit. At least this initiative will open another window to say that you don't have to be looking for 3 years in advance fund to be able to own your house. I believe I should let you have this information so that everybody will get ready. Thank you.
MDFHA has given us ESPO, as we used to call it in those days. So I will just try and wrap up now. Let me speak to question of the housing deficit. Gloria said I've repeated 17 million. I didn't repeat it. I've just said that is a lie, and that you should stop repeating it, and that you should stop publishing it, because...
Refuted.
Oh, I thought you said I repeated. Oh, okay. We're on the same page. Now, what is the deficit? What is the deficit? Brilliant question. And my answer is that until we conduct the next census, it is not likely that we will have it in definitive terms. What we have done is to ask the National Population Commission. In my first term as minister, we actually worked with National Population Commission. We developed a questionnaire for them to integrate into that census form, hoping that we would have concluded we would be conducting a census around 2016, 2017, which was a decade after the last one. But that hasn't happened. So right now, there is no precise... I worked with the Institute of Estate Valuers to challenge them, and they said they're doing some work to just... Let us even sample how many houses are empty in urban centers. So it's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we need to get it right. But first of all, is that we have proven that the earlier figure is not database, so it's not a figure upon which to plan. The figures upon which to plan lie in what we can see, empty houses against demand. in urban centers whilst we gather more data. You don't, I'm sure you haven't been, you probably didn't either hear me correctly. I said from day one, I had been asking where that data came from because I like to dimension what I have to manage. The first response I got was from World Bank. I met with the country manager at World Bank. They disowned it. Then somebody said, oh, maybe it was Africa Development Bank. I met with the country manager and said, no, it wasn't from them. And nobody could tell me until I found it. I asked the DG of MBS, and he said he doesn't have such a figure. So it's not that I waited for 6 years. You are not. Say again.
To find out how much we have.
That is the way you choose to report it. But I'm telling you that, I beg your pardon? There's a perspective, you're entitled to it, and it's not one I share respectfully. And, but I think that the nation is better served by knowing that some people have thrown out a number there that is not useful for planning and decision making. And the challenge now is to aggregate the right numbers. Towing from Business Day, you reported me as saying that there was the absence of local manufacturers for construction materials. I didn't say that. I said for construction bearings and way bridges specifically. There are other local materials used in construction that are made by Nigerians in Nigeria, inclusive of cement, reinforcement, and some bitumen, but not yet. And what we're hoping to do, as I said, was that when we dimension the full size of the industry need, it may form the basis of investment decision by those who export to us to come and produce here, or by those who are not looking at it internally, who are into foundry business, to start expanding their lines to meet our need. Well, how do we prioritize roads? I think that was the second question that I was asked. And just to say that, first of all, the priorities are defined by our economic needs and realities. So, first of all, we need to move lubricants, fuel, from one end of the country to the other. So roads that help us do that, that go into and out of our ports, that go into major fuel depots, many of which are around places like Suleja and Mina, are strategic priorities for attention. Roads that lead to vast agricultural communities because of the agro focus of government are also priorities for us. Just as roads that lead to mining corridors and roads that lead to border towns with neighboring countries are priorities for us. We also have priorities about roads in sectors like education. So we've spoken about the internal routes of federal tertiary institutions. Those are the considerations that guide the choice of which road before the other. in order to lock on to the broader economic objectives. We are not building a road because a road had to be built. We are building a road because it is a road for a specific economic objective. And then roads that carry heavy goods vehicle in support of logistics generally. Then relationship with host communities.
And nothing is being done to, kind of facilitate it to ensure that Nigerians don't go through the pains they go through on that route.
My understanding is that we have existing contracts on those roads. Now, completing them is a question of resource, not a lack of priority. It's a question of resource, not a lack of priority. And so you must understand this, just as we have spoken about, somebody asked me a question about the road to Ife earlier. It's not because it is a lack of priority, it's a question of competing resources. And then when you look at it, the traffic volume on that road, and I say this respectfully, and the traffic volume on maybe Benin to Lokoja are quite different. And if you don't have all of the resources to do everything at once, the rule of thumb in government is to do the greatest good to the greatest possible number. Because you may not be able to do the greatest good to everybody. So those are the hard choices we have to make. We wish we had all of the resources, but that's the reality. It's not that it is not a priority. It's a problem of resource allocation. And sometimes even when we prepare these budgets, we don't get what we want. So for 2022 now, there are so many things we would like to do. There are so many petitions, representations, resolutions that have been made on the floor of the House, people about their communities. But we have been given an envelope. You can't exceed this amount. And in utilizing that envelope, focus first, and you will do the same thing if you are sitting in this chair. You want to show your results. We are on our last mile. So what we will do is to prioritize to complete what we have started, as many of them as possible, and put it to use. So I do understand and I empathize, but those are the parameters for decision making. Relationship with host communities, yes, we have, this is not an easy thing to deal with, especially when you have different dozens of them across the country. But we've been largely assisted, let me say that. In the majority, we have support from host communities, and that's why we are actually able to report progress. There's very little we can do when communities are hosted, very, very little. And one of the places where we really have to give it to the communities is in the Bodu-Boni area. Because one of the reasons why those projects never got on were community issues. And we have received a lot of cooperation from them. And I'm sure that they too will probably say to you that their cooperation has not been misplaced because the infrastructure is now being built. Similarly, around the second Niger bridge area, the host communities on the Onitsha and Asaba ends, the Obi of Onitsha and the His Royal Highness, the Asagba, have also been very, very helpful. Not to talk of the governor of Anambra State, Willie Obiano, and the governor of Delta State, Senator Okoa. They have been champions of this project in their communities, and that has been helpful. On a general basis, communities are also some of the first beneficiaries of the investments in these assets in many ways. If we start from the base of the pyramid, the urban labor that is provided is usually sourced from the immediate environment. Contractors, except their technical staff, they don't carry labor to those communities to go and work. So it's the local people who are trained to provide some level of labor, skilled and unskilled. Secondly, in terms of supplies, I can tell you that most of the water works being done on the second Niger Bridge, because I asked, require the use of marine vessels, boats, outboard engines and all of that. All of this is rented and supplied by the local community because JB doesn't own them. So those are also where the local community plays. Also, subcontracts for the award of some materials like mining of sand, subject to quality control, because it's not every sand you can put to work, but there's a specification, are also matters of benefit to the local community. And of course, the provision of supplies, nutrition to all the workers are largely undertaken by women in the local community who sell food and supplies to the workforce in the construction camps. Of course, in terms of much more enduring benefit is the fact that everywhere we construct a road, asset value of the land, capital value of the land increases by 30 to 40%. This is the result of some expert advice from the professionals who do land valuation. So almost everywhere where we are building a road, we are injecting capital value into the neighboring land by 30 to 40%. So when they either rent or sell their land, they have gained value added. Then the purchase of construction materials, most of the quarry are on land sites belonging to local owners. So where you want to come and mine laterite, for example, and the last time I checked, I think the rates have gone up. If you owned a quarry where they come and mine laterite, for example, every truck that comes in is 6,000 naira to the owner of the land. There are other costs, of course, to the truck driver, to rent the truck and everything. So if you own, and if you imagine, even in an urban center, like when we did the Apapa-Oronshoke Expressway, as at halfway then, that project had consumed 5,000 trucks of laterite. So if you do 6,000 per truck times 5,000, you will see the numbers that we are talking about. And you don't mine laterite inside an urban center. It's usually in the more remote areas. So these are some of the benefits to the local communities and the employment and economic activity that they spin off. As a result of these investments also, as I mentioned earlier on the Obajan-Akaba Road, our economic survey of that shows that I think 8 new businesses have sprung up as a result of building a road. And that can only inure to the local community's benefit in the long term when they are rolling out. I think that was it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, budget for maintenance. There is no specific amount of budget for maintenance. When that policy was passed, what we sought to do was that every ministry, department, and agency of government will be mandated to now do its own maintenance assessment needs, do its maintenance design, and from there it can cost, and then it will make a provision in its annual budget. And we have raised this matter again, the Ministry of Budget and Planning, that they must insist in 2022 budget going forward that everybody must have a budget for maintenance. So, but we have in ministry, some other ministries also have, but what we want to do, as I said, is to make this an economy, a maintenance economy, and it must become standard. We are asking Mr. President to also consider if he will issue an executive order along these lines to compel everybody to act. But we think that the message is clear and we will see how it goes. Now, the other question Tony was asking was capitalization of Federal Mortgage Bank. I think there is such a request before us, but I have to present it to Council, and I think I sent it back to MD asking some questions which will be asked of me by other ministers about how we are going to raise the funds and all of those things. So before we can present it, we must have an indication where that is going. Also, the bank itself is undergoing some reform. We are trying to digitalize their record so that, like other banks where you can deposit money either online or in cash in one place and operate your account in another place, we want Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria to be one of those banks. So that process has been approved and going on. So after that, then it's no use having capital that you can't efficiently disburse or manage. So we're trying to do that. I think that's it.
Western bypass.
Western bypass, yes. It has not been returned to us, but it has been approved under the tax credit scheme as one of the roads. When the order was made, it was included in it.
Well, thank you. At this point, let me appreciate the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing. It's been an enlightening session. I'm sure we have learned a lot. There's a lot to chew. There's a lot to report. There's a lot to analyze. And I believe that those who say, what is the Buhari administration doing? They have seen it. They have had it. But it's also your responsibility to serve as a vehicle to let them know. Please help us report these things effectively, efficiently, so that Nigerians will know that there is a government that is out to serve them. Imagine budget for all federal roads in 2014 was 18 billion. And from there it went to 260 to 270 and all that. There is less money, but a lot more is being done. But unless you say it, the country may not know. Let me appreciate the team that came with the Minister, Engineer C.O. Uzo, Director of Highways Planning and Development, Oyeboade Akinola, Director of Press and Public Relations, Hakim Bello, our friend, brother, and colleague, a fellow of the Nigeria Guild of Editors, Special Assistant, Communication to the Honorable Minister, Architect Ahmed Dangiwa, Managing Director, Federal Mortgage Bank, Senator Gbenga Shafa, our friend from Lagos. Good to see you in Abuja. Is Managing Director of Federal Housing Authority. There are some other support staff. We welcome every one of you. I also want to thank members of the Presidential Communication Team who have put this together. Week after week, they bring people to come and address the State House media here. Ugemodi, thank you. Every other member of the communication team, thank you for putting this together. And members of the State House media, if every other person came and you were not here, it will not be complete. So thank you for coming to cover this and report it efficiently. If you hear me using an expression like ecosystem of checks and balances, know that it was not original to me. I borrowed it from the minister. Thank you. You're welcome.